Shane, thank you so much for the intro. Just to give you a little bit of context of the kind of human being I am, the employee that I am, I'm a combination of an engineer and a management consultant. And Microsoft employed people like me in their strategic advisory practices to make sure that whenever there are conversations about this incredibly disruptive technology that we're experiencing at the moment, that there is a connection between that technology and shareholder value to try and make sense of what that really means in terms of business impact. I'm telling you all of this because that is my editorial. That's what's going to frame the way that we're looking at this world that we're in at the moment. It's a world that is moving incredibly fast. Andy and I were just reflecting on some of the announcements that are coming out at the moment. 2 weeks ago, Sam Altman announced with OpenAI the launch of GPT-4o, the multimodal version of GPT-4 that does, amongst other things, puts voice and video right into the large language models, enables you to do some incredible reasoning and interpretation in that space. Less than a week later, Satya Nadella was on stage at the Build conference, announcing that GPT-4o was going to be general availability through our Azure AI service. From a tenuous announcement by OpenAI to general availability on a core Microsoft platform in about 6 days. It's unprecedented. People like me find it quite challenging because we've somehow got to keep one step ahead of the conversation with our customers, reassure our customers and make them feel confident that this technology is grounded, it's supported. But that's the world we're in at the moment. And all of us here are experiencing that same kind of breathlessness around this. And there is no better grounding of that breathlessness than a conversation about security, identity, and compliance. So I'm going to give a little bit of an editorial on that, about Microsoft's perspective on this. I'm going to use a little bit of Microsoft taxonomy, if you like, about the way that we frame this story. You'll have other references, other extrapolations in your own head, so feel free to riff on that. I'm going to be pretty high level, as Microsoft would say, very level 100 with this. I'm delighted that Andy's going to follow me and go deeper. Andy's been actually over in Redmond recently getting fully briefed on a lot of the detail associated with this. So we'll then do a Slido together after this, and you can hold on to all of those great questions about the roadmap, about maybe some of your personal observations about using this after that. So let's get into this. I've called it Trust Me, I'm a GPT. And I thought, having looking out in the room at the moment and seeing a room full of athletes, I thought I'd begin with a story about a running shoe, which is my personal epiphany about the shift that is happening here. It's a story that's actually a little bit old. It's about 12 months old now. But we were sort of this time last year, the wave of ChatGPT was just beginning to dissipate. People were kind of getting past the limerick challenges that were happening at our glamorous dinner parties and things like that we were doing, and thinking about what this really means for work. In Microsoft, we were also beginning to develop the thing that became Copilot quite quickly. I spend much of my day job working with retail and consumer goods companies. It is my sort of industry specialism, if you like, from an advisory point of view. And a colleague of mine inside the consumer goods team, so it's a story I can't take a huge amount of credit for, came up to me with this thought experiment that he'd been running with a combination of ChatGPT and the beginnings of Copilot as it was appearing in some of our software as a service applications. He imagined that if I'm a consumer goods company and I want to push a launch of a new product inside my company and get it through the board for investment, what would that process look like in this world of generative AI? So he set ChatGPT at the internet and asked ChatGPT to identify the top 6 reviewed running shoes on the planet. And he interrogated ChatGPT a little bit further to ask it to define why it was that these 6 shoes were the top 6 reviewed running shoes on the planet. What were the attributes, the physical properties of these shoes that made them so highly reviewed? He then put that back into ChatGPT again and asked ChatGPT to synthesize it into the best of the best running shoe and to create, using a template that was on the internet, a full-blown product description of this. The whole of that information was then passed into DALL-E, and this image, slightly underwhelming image if you ask me, was created using DALL-E, OpenAI's generative AI image creation platform. He accumulated a vast amount of information here that he was then able to drop into, amongst other things, Word, and to create a fully outlined proposition for the board in Word with images, with breakdowns. He dipped into Excel using the beginnings of Copilot in Excel to create a fully costed return on investment plan associated with the launch of this product, its success in various markets, typical margin rates for different demographics, etc. Built that out using all of the best practice that the internet was able to provide him through generative AI. And of course, it was going to be a boardroom pitch, so all of this information could then be pulled back into PowerPoint, and with a click of a button, a boardroom presentation for the launch of this Screamer 2.0 shoe, I think he called it, because that's what ChatGPT told him to call it. This was presentable to a boardroom. All of this, I have to say, took 2.5 hours on a wet Tuesday morning at our Paddington's office up the road. Welcome to the world of generative pre-trained transformers, I thought. This is absolutely astonishing. I spend much of my time at the moment speaking to audiences, incredibly trained professionals like all of us here, that are sitting in their chairs thinking, what does this mean for my jobs in the future? What does this mean for the jobs of my children in the future? What does this mean for society as a whole? Some of the things that are happening in my particular industry around retail and consumer goods at the moment are incredible in terms of fusing this kind of technology with creativity. They are genuinely game-changing is the way that we think about it. But that was 12 months ago, and now we're at a world where this kind of technology is now infused into robust application environments. And when Microsoft brings generative AI into its products, its software as a service applications, you'll know that we call it Copilot. So let's look at where this world has now moved on to from the beginnings of this little thought experiment around a running shoe.
Whoa. Straight to the top, never going down, don't wait for the drop. Stand still, that's the motto, yeah. Brand new bands for the auto, oh. Foot to the ground, full throttle. Big energy for the night like lotto. Y'all talk lots, never this quiet. Life like a Seinfeld plot. Vault full of songs, all of them bombs. Something like a minefield guy, boom. Get it, tickets running out quick. Bet it, never get it out big. Said it, never had to shout it. They said I couldn't ever do it, okay, how's this? Fit a week worth of work in a minute. Machine well oiled, you know how I stay efficient. To-do list written, I do this different. Hold up, wait a minute, I ain't finished. Okay. Look, flows the same now. Paved the way, the snakes and fakes are chased out. Back to back to back, I changed the pace now. Had to stack the cash until the bank's out. Straight to the top, never going down, don't wait for the drop.
Things have moved on. Things have moved on from the slightly hackneyed version of my colleague's thought experiment. This is my world at the moment. I thought I'd just give you a little window into, it's a slightly contrived story, I have to confess, but this is broadly the kind of day that I have working with Copilot. Every day, literally every day, I begin my day by offloading my planning, alignment, my head calibration to Copilot. I just ask with a simple prompt that I can now memorize and do by heart, but quite often I'll copy and paste from my OneNote. I ask it questions about what's in my diary today. What do I need to know about at least the first meetings in the morning so that I'm briefed, ready to get going while I'm making my nice little coffee at home, ready for the day. And when I'm delivering keynotes, presentations like this, that process is utterly transformed. I spend much of my life inside PowerPoint. The ability for me to be able to move from notes that I'm taking on the train or whatever into the beginnings of a presentation that that then can become paced and presented well for environments like this is disrupted. The other day I wanted to tell a story that used 4 images that looked the same, 4 themes that had the same image behind them. I had 2 terrific images that worked really well for the first 2, but the other 2 I just couldn't find any images that kind of were consistent aesthetically with what I wanted to present. So I looked inside the meta prompts of these 2 images that I put inside my original presentation, and I got the camera attributes from those meta prompts. And I put those prompts back into Microsoft Designer, asked it to create a photorealistic image with a Nikon camera lens running at f12 with a few more parameters alongside it. And I got sympathetic images just like that, without trawling through photostock libraries. Productivity is just transformed with this. I should say there's a huge amount of humility that comes along with this, things that you slightly conceited think that you were the only person in the world that could ever do, are now being done automatically by something that sits in that sidebar on your machine. Teams utterly disrupted. Most of us, that's where we get into with this. Copilot in Outlook is completely linked into my CRM system, so all of that communication, logging, and everything like that, and intelligence associated with my comms is in there. It is incredible. I did my annual review this week with my boss. I asked Copilot to look through the emails and messages that I'd done, in fact, over the last 6 months, to get a pen picture of how my email and inbox would describe my performance this year. I gave it various attributes that are the criteria that Microsoft described good performance in, but Copilot was very good at reasoning through all of my work as evidenced through my communications about how effective I was in aligning all of that work with the parameters of my job. It is truly, truly incredible. And now it is coming into the world of my customers as well. And I spend time with my customers explaining how this isn't just going to transform their own productivity, as examples like this, but also transform the relationships that they have with their customers. I'm going to play you a very recent video that was seen in Build last week, which is bringing that GPT-4o capability, which is now available to you, to everybody, into the world of consumer interactions.
All right, let me ask the agent here.
Hey, Seth. How's it going? What can I help you with today?
I am fantastic. I'm sorry, I'm in such a hurry. I'm gonna go on an overnight camping hike where we're camping all this. It's gonna be dark, cold. Should I use these shoes? It's the mountains. It's probably gonna be cold.
Great, no worries. Let me take a look. Ah, those are the Trek Star hiking sandals. While they're fantastic for summer hikes and keeping your feet cool, they might not be the best choice for cold
Oh my goodness,
mountain
so, okay, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Pick the best thing that I should use, and can you just add it to my cart? Just one product.
No worries. Let's go with the Trek Ready hiking boots. They're durable, provide great ankle support, and most importantly, they'll keep your feet warm in the cold mountains. I'll add them to your cart now.
Oh,
ready for checkout?
I see that. Amazing. Muchísimas gracias. Espero que me vaya bien en el campamento.
De nada, Seth. Disfruta de tu campamento y mantente caliente con esas botas. Buena suerte y diviértate en las montañas.
Astonishing, genuinely astonishing. Imagine that, though. Imagine how scary that is for a consumer-oriented organization with a very carefully calibrated brand, offloading that incredibly intimate experience, the big crunch moment in retail, e-commerce, the transactional moment of making choices around products. You've got to be pretty confident to be able to use this kind of technology. And when we think about where this is going in terms of some of those additional productivity enhancements, you then start seeing some of these other services that are now appearing through your Azure AI service. I'm just going to play this next video, which is equally challenging for us.
This is our new video translator. With this, I can translate videos into other languages in my own voice. Maintenant, je peux enfin parler français comme je l'ai toujours voulu. または日本語で何かをささやくこともできます。या मैं हिंदी में चिल्लाकर आपसे बात करूं? This AI is going to bring the world together.
video translation available in preview in your Azure OpenAI service at the moment. It's incredibly powerful. You can see all of the use cases that you might breathlessly want to be using with this kind of technology. But and this is where I'm slightly milking this story a little bit, it is a world that, despite its great opportunity, comes with significant risks. This image here is, it's actually the Hong Kong Design Institute. And it's an incredible engineering structure. It's basically a big cantilevered structure on 4 pillars. The mathematics associated with the safety and the architecture of this structure is terrifying, quite frankly. But when architects try and then realize the schemes that they've come up with in their heads, they engage very trusted engineering companies to do all of the mathematics and assure them that this kind of building can be built safely. I'm emphasizing the word trust in this very strongly. A couple of weeks ago, it was revealed that there'd been a phishing incident in Hong Kong back in February, where a company, and in this case, it was the engineering company that had been advising on this building, Arup, had been subject to an incredibly sophisticated phishing attack. Nothing to do with engineering, it was a finance phishing attack. And the phishing attack went along the lines of the fact that this person, an individual in the company, was invited to a Teams meeting and was persuaded by the participants in this Teams meeting by the faces of people that he recognized in that meeting, the voices, the tone of the voices that he recognized in that meeting, to transfer somewhere of the order of £26.5 million worth of money over to this account. It wasn't immediate on the back of that meeting, but the meeting itself was the crunch moment that got this person into that situation. Incredibly, incredibly difficult for the brand, incredibly costly for the company, really, really difficult. And I'm not picking on Arup for any reason other than that it's a very current story. It is a story that demonstrates how sophisticated the threats are associated with this technology. And a lot of that is down to the nature of what we're playing with in this technology. The big shift that has happened with generative AI is really down to 2 incredibly beguiling capabilities that sit inside it. Firstly, the natural language interface that is afforded by the attention-driving nature of generative pre-trained transformer models enables you to have an incredibly human conversation with these tools. These tools understand what you're asking. They don't force you to move into an index-based syntax when you're trying to search for information. They know what you really want. They understand the question that you're asking in the context of the sequence of the other questions that you've already been asking. They make presumptions. And with tools like GPT-4o, they can shift their inferences based on the tone of your voice to adapt to that. It's an incredibly human-like interface that we're experiencing. The other side of it is that these technologies are incredibly good at knitting vast new forms of data together, reasoning over vast data sets, and adapting over vast data sets incredibly quickly, more quickly than they've ever been able to before. And these 2 things create some really significant threats for us. One of the biggest things is the lack of visibility in this space that is hidden behind this sort of veneer of magic associated with this technology. And it manifests itself in a bunch of areas, but you might want to look at these things as being threefold. That there are risks definitely about the fact that we are enticed into these experiences and leaking data that we really shouldn't be leaking outside the environments that we're keeping them within. The second one is that we're accessing data perhaps that we shouldn't be accessing. How do we keep control of that reasoning over that broader data set? And then the final bit is that because this technology is so complicated and so difficult to understand, there are issues here about the application of this technology, about environments that we should be using this technology, contexts that we should be using this technology and otherwise. and then making and acting on the inferences that this technology provides us with in contexts that are not helpful to us. So I'm going to break it down into 3 challenges, just to give you a little bit of structure. And again, these are kind of signposts for you to reach into the day that follows today and to think about how these things are actually substantiated with products that sit behind them. The first one, let's look at this issue about the fact that the big game changer at the moment is that Gen AI is more human, and that really does raise the threat level for the way that we need to keep control and keep secure our data. And I've just picked up 2 aspects for each of these. The first bit is reminding you of the importance of educating everybody continually. 95%, we know this, whether it's 95, 96, 97% of bad events that happen in our security space are created by human beings. And it is our ability to be able to educate our human beings on the risk threats associated with this, on the best practice of navigating that is absolutely fundamental to everything that we do. You can have the best tooling in the world associated with your platform, but if you've got uneducated employees, you're always going to be at risk of those significant events. And frankly, none of us have any excuse not to educate our employees on this. There are so many resources available. I've just scrolled through some resources that are readily available on the Microsoft website. LinkedIn Learning is immense in this space, but also working with great partners like Cocho through the services that they provide to keep that level of knowledge relentlessly updated inside your organization. That's what's absolutely fundamental to this. And the second side of it, which is more on the sort of the identity issue of this, is that really realizing that we're now much more mature in our perspective of managing identity. And this slide here represents 3 stages of maturity as we've gone through our cloud-enabled world and how we've managed that identity process. We really at the beginning saw identity as being a facilitator of access to services, one that was probably more aligned to the user profiles that we wanted particular applications to use. And then we've put it over the top as being some kind of policing function, a control plane that we think that we can statically keep our arms around everything. We understand that world, so therefore we're going to constrain everything in these very finite moments in time. Where we're now, from a Microsoft point of view, and you'll hear us use this expression a lot more now, is something that we would describe as trust fabric, which is much more agile. It's much more micro-oriented. It's looking at the activities associated with our workflows rather than necessarily the aggregate workflows or the user profiles itself. It is essentially the philosophy that sits behind Microsoft Entra, the new orientation of our identity management side of things. And I'm sure we're going to develop that a little bit more throughout the day. So that's the first one. Gen AI is definitely more human. Focus on the education, focus on the identity, and focus on them relentlessly is the key thing. And recognize that the world is shifting and adapting so quickly that at any point in time, if you have hubris about the fact that you've nailed it, well, then you're going to look a little bit silly tomorrow because the world will look very different then. The second bit is really about this adaptability thing. And what does that really mean about the way that these technologies are shifting around it? And the first thing I would suggest with this is fight fire with fire. Gen AI is actually a tool that you can employ to help you adapt to this shifting target. And what you can see with Microsoft Copilot for Security is us throwing Gen AI back at the security plane to understand that. I thought I'd just play the little Microsoft Copilot for Security video to give you.
Security is complex, but it doesn't have to be difficult. Microsoft Copilot for Security brings the paradigm-shifting power of generative AI to the security industry at large. Copilot doesn't replace human insight and imagination. It complements your ingenuity at machine speed and scale, letting you see more and move faster. It performs complex security and admin tasks intuitively, elevating the expertise of the entire team. Junior members get a coach to develop their skills, while experts have an always-ready AI assistant, freeing them up to innovate, create, and think strategically. With Microsoft Copilot for Security on your team, you'll transform the way you protect and support your organization. Security is complex. Make it simple with Copilot.
Personally, I think that Microsoft Copilot for Security is Copilot at its best. It's sitting there as an aggregate, as a user interface into a whole bunch of tooling that sits underneath it. It's your gateway into Defender, into Sentinel, into Entra, all of those applications that you're having to shift a frame, a mindset, move into a different perspective to actually get value out of. You're now going through that through a single plane, a Copilot plane at the beginning that understands you, that gets you, that relates it to the business that you want to do every day. It's a terrific product and will be fundamental to the way that we're going to be delivering security services inside our organizations. Gosh, that's a bit of a gushing overview on that one. The second bit is probably something a little bit selfish from my management consultancy side of things. As you probably are aware, management consultants love 2x2 frameworks. They love little portfolio analysis, the stuff in the bottom left-hand corner and the stuff in the top right-hand corner, and this is how we segment everything that we're doing at the moment. Quite frankly, I have never used as many 2x2 matrices as I have done over the last 12 months at the moment, because they are used to make sense of complexity at the moment. There is so much uncertainty about the way that this technology is going at the moment that strategy is fundamental to the way of thinking through this and prioritizing your action. You will have boardrooms that in their delightful ignorance and excitement will say, I don't care, I just want to do something with Gen AI tomorrow. Customers of mine come to me with that. I need to do something just to keep the boardroom happy, quiet, off my back at the moment. How do you get into something now, immediately, but also exercise that thing that sits inside you, which is you know that actually you've got to do that foundational work for the stuff that is coming tomorrow. And having the ability to work through that twin speed, twin track approach is strategy. How do you identify the low-hanging fruit, the use cases that are available at the moment that you can drop into your world in environments that are already trusted, already architected within your guidelines? How do you access Copilots inside software as a service applications like Microsoft 365 or others? How do you work in your environment ready, quickly, get going on it? But then how do you also create those foundational data environments that are fit for you to develop and do great things with Copilot? Microsoft's strategy is to try and help you through that journey. We want you to get going quickly, which is why we've taken the trouble of putting Gen AI into Microsoft 365. We've put it inside your applications that you should be familiar with, comfortable with. You have processes for managing them within. But then we also want you to riff on it. We want you to customize it. We've created Microsoft Copilot Studio for you to be able to extend your Copilots into business workflows that are particular to you. And then ultimately, we want you to get into places that are unknown, that are new bits of intellectual property for you through things like Azure AI Service at the end of it. Thinking how you work through that and get going working with partners along that journey is fundamental to that strategy. You are going to be very partner heavy at the beginning of this journey, particularly as you're delivering on your immediate goals and then you're setting the foundations for your longer term plans in the future. It's another reason why we're so pleased that partners like Kojo are making such a big importance of topics like security and identity in this space, because they are fundamentally the enablers of this twin track strategy for you. So that's those first two. The third one is really to do with scale. What I find at the moment my customers is that many of them are less excited about the new data that can be generated by some of these incredible new e-commerce experiences that can be created. They're actually more excited about how they can put their existing data, the latent value that sits inside some of these data sets that they've not been either able to reason over before because they're unstructured, or they've not been able to connect and make sense through complex semantic models in order to put that legacy latent value data to work. And so this ability for Gen AI to be really expansive in that perspective is a real attraction to everybody. And so how you get to that value, but get to that value compliantly as you're keeping control and governance over all of these disparate data sets in all of these different structures and connections becomes so fundamentally important. And then when we look at that, this is why purview is such a really important element of. When I'm accessing my documents in my instance of Microsoft 365, I'm constantly being reminded about policy issues associated with the documents that I'm looking at. It's coaching me to say that this document here, you can't share with that person there because they don't have the right identity profile for that. Or, I'm sorry, you can look at that document, but you can't edit that document because it is something that is controlled with that. All of that is being surfaced inside my Microsoft Copilot experience, making me feel confident that I'm not going to be doing anything that is breaking the policies and the compliancy attributes of everything that I'm doing. Getting those foundations ready is going to be a really important element of you enabling your value delivery from this capability. And then the second bit is this issue about responsibility, about some of the things of whether you should be doing things with this data rather than whether you can be doing things with this data. Getting your responsible AI principles grounded and established is a really important cornerstone of this. And it's not hard. It doesn't have to be a big academic philosophical treatise associated with your responsibility principles. Others have been before you, not least Microsoft. Microsoft would lovingly offer you all of its advice and support around its own responsible AI approaches to this for you to be able to make your own. But seeing responsibility as being a fundamental element of this security environment that we're trying to create for generative AI is really important to it. And just as a reminder of this, just right at the end of this, just to give you a bit of an essence of why this is so important for us. This is Microsoft's business. Our share price as a company is intrinsically linked to trust. Your share value, your stock value, the capital inside your organizations will be increasingly intrinsically linked to trust as you are offloading more and more of your work into these incredibly sophisticated bits of technology. So I've put up here the statement for Microsoft, but there are obviously provocations and indications in here about what this means for you as well. So hopefully I've kind of prompted you to kind of get salivating over what's to follow today. Hopefully I've given you a little bit of signposting about the way that Microsoft looks at the world through this.